Welcome to the Autosportradio.com 2022 show. I'm your host, Don Kay. Tonight's program is brought to you, as always, by Honda and Honda HPD, the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, the NTT IndyCar Series, SVRA, and VP Insurance. I want to remind you, if you made a resolution in the new year that you want to get your dental work taken care of, I got just the place to go. The Indy Dental Group, Indy 500 veteran Dr. Jack Milner and his wife, Dr. Liz Lewis, have a phenomenal practice. If you need dental work, give them a call. Make an appointment. The number is 317-846-6125. That's the Indy Dental Group. And if you want to keep up with everything that's going on with the IndyCar Series, you've got to subscribe to Trackside Online. The subscription will get you all of the PR from all of the teams. You keep up with what's going on. So go to tracksideonline.com and sign up. It's interesting that when it's the commissioner of insurance says every year or two check your insurance to make sure you're getting the best price. And I highly recommend VP Insurance. Call Mike Pardee and get a quote. You might be surprised, as most of us have. You get better coverage for less money. Give him a call at 317-248-0070. Tell him what you need. He'll take care of you. Or drive by the office. It's at 5004 West 16th Street in Speedway. That's VP Insurance. And if you're a vintage car fan or a Trans Am fan, the SVRA is the place to be. They have events all around the country, and they have a magazine that's spectacular. It's Speed Tour Quarterly. I highly recommend you subscribe to it. It's a first-class magazine. Just go to svra.com and subscribe. You'll love it. And check the schedule. And if there's an event anywhere near you, you can get to it in an hour or so. Go. It's a great event. We're at the Speedway Cable TV studio today, and I have a special guest with me. Somebody that I think if you're an IndyCar fan or a Road to Indy program fan, or a fan of motorsports, you need to subscribe to Trackside Online. It's a very inexpensive way of finding out almost everything that's going on. And of course, I'm talking with the associate writer, Steve Wittich. And Steve, Trackside to me is the ideal place for a race fan to go because you guys have all the PR stuff from all the teams. You talk to the teams. The teams will talk to you because what they tell you is what you write. You don't make up something.
No, we don't make things up. That's for sure.
You write it. But what got you interested in motorsports to begin with that you now write for it full time?
My dad was a big racing fan, and he was friends with a couple guys actually. If you were ever familiar with Formula Fords and the old Ferret Formula Ford, he was friends with the guys who built that and raced that. And then we started going to tracks around southern Ontario, mainly NASCAR stuff early, but then a few IndyCar races. I think the first one I went to was at Mosport in 1978, I want to say. And then we moved down to the Windsor area, and we'd always go to Michigan for the IndyCar race. So I loved that. Then I just, in high school, I started becoming a big fan, and in college, I traveled to a lot of the races around the Midwest from Ontario, and then I ended up moving down here in the mid-'90s to finish college. I stayed, got married, and started a career. Actually, I was in sales for a long time, selling to banks, back-end processing systems and stuff like that. When the financial crisis hit in whatever that was, '08, I started doing a few other things. I still do an eBay business where I buy and sell mainly music collectibles. But then around 2010, I had an offer to do a fan blog for Racer, and I did that, which turned into an offer to write for another site. And then the next year, I think in 12, maybe 13, I started with Trackside Online.
So you and Patrick are still doing it and covering it well, although he's not at every race like he used to be.
No, he's got kids at that age where they're playing soccer and dance and all that. So it's my turn now to do a little bit more of the traveling, which I don't mind. I don't no kids in our family, so travels, and my wife's used to it. I traveled when I was in sales, so and I actually enjoy travel. So,
what's new? How do you see this series progressing? Do you think the IndyCar series and the Road to Indy program are moving forward as they should?
I do. You always want to see more progress, but considering where we came from, a few years ago, I think the progress is good. I think the TV deal is huge. I think it's a really big deal, especially for the sponsors and the partners. We're getting 1 million people watching every race, which, if we got 300 in the versus an NBSCSN days, we'd be happy. So I think that part of it's really moved forward. And we've got a lot of good teams too, right? Like we've got 26 full-time cars. So that shows the health of the series and how teams can get partners to buy in. And, we've seen a lot of new partners come in like NTT and Arrow with McLaren and Sam Schmidt and Rick Peterson. So, no, I think the health is really good. We've had some growing pains the last couple of years in the road to Indy, but I think it's getting better, especially on the Indy Lights side now that Mr. Penske took over. There's some positives there. We're 14 full-time cars, so that's definitely an increase. And then the other series are healthy too, right? We've got 15 or 16 in Indy Pro and 20 in USF 2000 this year, and all three of those series are really good fields. Really deep fields. A lot of guys can win races. A lot of girls can win races. So,
I think that's what, to me, is interesting. And when I've talked to the guys from Formula One that have come to IndyCar, they say, we love it. There's competition, and we got a chance to win. Whereas they were in mid-pack and at the end in Formula One and never won anywhere and had no real hope of getting there. Whereas now, as Mark Miles pointed out to me, on any given weekend, there's 16 guys that can win.
There is.
Teams.
And that's when you see the European drivers come over, they're always shocked at how they get a fair chance. Unless you're the number one driver with the number one team in Europe, you might be fighting for podiums and wins once in a while, but it's not as competitive, and the teams aren't as close all the way through the road to Indy up to IndyCar. It doesn't matter. You saw a single car team with Juncos Hollinger last weekend, who, was qualifying with the big boys, right? Like, that doesn't happen in Europe. The smaller teams don't qualify with the big teams. And then at the road to Indy level, the kids that come over are just amazed at how fair it is and how equal it is. And, you could be the fourth driver on a team and you get treated the same as the number one driver on that team. So it's very equal. And then the teams are always pretty close too. So no, it's been really competitive.
Well, there's two things about that. As you say in Formula One, if you're one of the best teams, and how can you see that? Look what happened to Lewis Hamilton this year.
Right.
Mercedes is a little behind, and he's behind because of it.
Yeah.
So it does show up. I think also that the Road to Indy program is looking good, but what's concerning to me and to everybody, great to have 26 cars. Unfortunately, it's taken all of the available crews to run those 26. So when you want to get, the 33rd car, they had to scratch it. We just announced today that there will be one. There's not crews available. That's a serious problem.
It's a huge problem right now, and it's across motorsports in general, even NASCAR, everywhere. It's a big issue right now, and I honestly don't know what the solution is. I would like to see, IndyCar or an IMS and Mr. Penske maybe put together a school, here in Indy where interested people can come for a year and learn how to be a race car mechanic. I think that's probably, you're going to have to, I think, go into the schools and go into the technical schools and start recruiting people. You're not just, this isn't where the times where there was a mechanic job open at Penske and they'd get 300 resumes. That doesn't happen now. So I think these teams are going to have to learn that they're going to have to sell themselves, right? There's so many jobs available at the dealerships and those pay well and you don't travel. So there's benefits to that. So no, I think there's a point where they're going to have to go and start actually recruiting crew. And go to the technical schools or go to a dealership and try and find the young good mechanic that wants to travel and see the world and wants to compete.
Well, I think part of the problem, from what I've heard, is a lot of the guys, when there was 21, 22 cars, they were looking for work. Now they've gone to IMSA and the WeatherTech series. They're working, but now they're not available for IndyCar when they need a couple more. I mean, I can remember the day when I first started coming here in '64, there'd be 80, 90 cars entered in the 500. Now they're struggling for 33, and part of the problem is crews.
No, it is, and it's more, and it takes a specialized person, and part of the problem we have with the 500 and the crews is, yes, the crew, it's hard to find the people, but also the teams don't want to manage those outside crew guys, and it's nothing against the outside crew guys, but it takes Don's phone's going off, fans. You're fine, Don. It takes management, right, of those other crews, and it might take away from managing your other 2 cars or your other 3 cars, and that's, it's different days when, the other crew could just do what they wanted, but that's not the way it works anymore. So
it's a shame, because there are some good, and the thing is, the Road to Indy program, and Indy Lights in particular, is getting drivers who are capable of moving.
it is.
Now there's nowhere to go. And a lot of them are standing out saying, well, here I am. And case in point to me, one of the local guys that I think should be it, he had one race, I think, and won it, and that's Cody Swanson.
Yes.
But it takes so many parts to make a team. You don't say, I'm a driver and there's a car and here we go.
Right.
There's a lot involved.
It is. And teams aren't interested in putting uncompetitive cars out there either. Now.
Yeah.
It's different, right? Like, just making the race doesn't seem to interest me. I don't know why, because I think it's cool as heck. But times change, and the teams want to be competitive, and it's expensive too.
Well, I know that Ryan Hunter-Ray said he's had some offers, but he's got 2 problems. One, a competitive car, and getting an engine now. That's
right.
There aren't any, and there's talk, of course, about another engine manufacturer coming in, and if I understand right, both Chevy and Honda said, we'll give you what you need to get started.
Yes.
So you don't spend 2 years developing. We'll tell you how to start. But so far, nothing has come up, and that's kind of hurting, because they only want to run 16, 17 engines each, and that's it.
Right. And again, for those guys, like the teams, it's a staffing. They have a hard time finding the engineers, and again, it's managing these people, right? You add more people to manage, it's a bigger headache, right? So, we got to 33 cars this morning, so that's definitely a good thing. I honestly highly doubt we'll get above that. It's just not. There's just nobody out there right now that has, the combination of money. And the good thing with this program, it's Steph Wilson with Cusick Motorsports and a car from Foyt and a crew from Dragon Speed. So the fact that they could work together with and bring a crew that's experienced helps a ton.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? And it's going to be, it's that crew's going to have to work hard. That crew's over at Mid-Ohio the same weekend as the road course race, so they're going to have to come over and get the car ready. And Foyt had a speedway car ready, so that was good for the team, and probably good for Foyt too. They get a little bit more data and maybe make a little money, hopefully.
Yeah, it's strange, because there are teams now that are very, very competitive, and one you would expect is AJ Foyt Racing, and they seem to be still struggling a bit.
They're making strides, but they got behind quite a bit, and it just takes a lot. They might have improved 25% this year, and the other teams may have only moved 5%, but they were 50% behind, so they're still a little bit behind. But I know they spent a lot of money on a damper program over the last couple seasons, and it's starting to pay off. There are times they've shown some speed. They struggled at Barber, and I was surprised by that, because the team's been quick there, but they just couldn't seem to be able, whatever they were doing with the dampers and ride height, and they just couldn't get the temperature in the new tires. There was a new compound and construction of the tires, especially the blacks, where they just couldn't get the heat into them, and they were, once they got the heat into them, the pace was okay, but it took them too long to get them up to the right temperature. So. You think about it, when you're a fan sitting in the stand, you say, tire, it's round, it's black, big deal, but there's a lot involved in it, a lot of testing. There
Firestone
really is, yeah.
spends a lot of time testing and developing and coming up, because they want to be able to coordinate the tire change with fuel. So They try and make a tire that will last 30, 40, 50 laps good.
And you want it to fall off just a little bit at the end, so the driver has to manage that. No, it's a far harder job than people think. That Cara and Firestone do to make, they're a big part of why the racing's been so good. It's, they make that tire that it's got a lot of grip at the beginning and it starts to fall off, but the driver has the ability to manage that. So, no, they do a good job.
Not only tire, you hear a lot about fuel, saving fuel and so forth. It's all stuff that back when I first came, that wasn't an issue. You just put it to the floor and go as fast as you can until the engine blew up. Which in the 60s and 70s.
Once in a while it did it?
Oh,
yeah, it did, yeah.
So it's interesting. What do you think is ahead for IndyCar? Do you think, a lot of fans are kind of disappointed in the fact that there's not more ovals. And IndyCar got its name and its reputation from the 500 and oval racing. Now there's only 3 or 4 ovals. Do you think that there's a chance they'll, put a couple more ovals in the series? I know Roger doesn't want to go over 18 or 19 races, I don't think.
No, I don't think so. But I know he wants to add some more ovals, and especially short ovals. I think that's the, where it's headed. I'd like to see another speedway or two, but, it's just, there's a lot behind it. And yeah, I think his goal is to add a couple more ovals, which would be fantastic. There's a couple that I think when you look at what Gateway's been able to do with their promotion, there should be some more interest from these ovals. But, when you've got NASCAR owning a lot of them, they no interest in putting the promotion behind it because they don't need to. They make enough money. They make money just running NASCAR, so and just getting the TV money from NASCAR. So it's hard. There's not a lot of. You need to have a track president that likes IndyCar and is willing to put the promotion behind it. And I don't think there is. And, it's a shame that we're not at Pocono. It's another one of those privately owned tracks that I think, it was starting to build.
It was.
Was it packed crowds? No, but, kind of added 10 or 15% every year. And over, if you gave it some time, I think it would.
Yeah, I agree. And I also think a place I used to love to go is Richmond. And the fans there, when we went there, I'd go and talk to, I go out to the parking lot. What brings you here? Why are you here? Oh, the racing is good. The cars are fast. Oh, really? Yeah. They're faster than NASCAR. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And I used to spot with Mark Janes, who is now the voice of the 500. He and I would be up right near turn 3. And the last time we were there, I said to Mark, if we're not careful, we're going to have to find somewhere else because the crowd was coming around into turn 2 and building coming from 4 down into 3. It was getting a good crowd. And all of a sudden, poof, it went away. It was scheduled for a year and the pandemic canceled it. I'd sure like to see that come back. That's a good track.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's a pretty good track for IndyCar. And I think with these cars, it would race really well. And I think when we get what we're going to get, the 900 horsepower engine, I think it'll even race better.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot. It's no flat to the foot to the floor there. It's going to be a lot of driving. I think another one I would love to see come back, and I used to really enjoy, was New Hampshire.
Yes.
I really like New Hampshire, and it's kind of that flat. It's kind of what IndyCar, was made on.
Right.
Right. Those paperclip flat 1 mile ovals. And I thought the racing there was usually pretty good.
The interesting thing is, if you get a chance to talk to a driver, you think, obviously the epitome is the 500 because you win that and it's a career maker. But you ask them, what are your favorite tracks? And it's the short ovals.
Oh, yeah, it is. Yep.
I'd like to see, they even talk about Milwaukee possibly as a possibility. But the short ovals, these guys love driving them. They're fun to drive.
And it takes a lot of skill. It's not, it's not that there isn't a lot of skill at Texas, but these short ovals, when you're braking and shifting and lifting, there's a lot to it. And it's, the drivers, they do enjoy it. And it tends to, the cream rises to the top on those short ovals like that for sure. Like the guys who have the car control and the ability to feel what the car's doing are the guys the drivers that do really well.
And I'm sure you found this out having talked to the drivers that have come from Formula One, that they like, because they have to drive these cars.
Yes.
They've always told me in Formula One, you got so much downforce, you got to make sure you turn at the right time or you've got a problem. And they love it because they drive these cars. And of course, I've mentioned this 100 times. Romain Grosjean found that out when he tested at Barber. He looped the car, I think, the first or second lap out.
Yeah.
And when he came in, they said, what happened? He said, I didn't realize you got to actually drive these cars.
Yeah.
So, it's fun, and you're getting some big people, which for the series, to me, is good. because all these guys that are coming have got fans in Europe, and European viewership is picking up immensely.
It is. Yeah, no, I think we've got a really good mix of the when we, what we've got come into the series this year. We've got a couple guys from Indy Lights and, a couple guys from Europe. And the good thing is that the guys we're getting from Europe, Callum Ilott and the Christian Lundgaard, they're the best of the best. Those guys should be competing for Formula One jobs, but it's just not happening for them right now. Like, Callum Ilott's really talented. I rate him very highly. You don't get to be a Ferrari junior driver if you're not. So yeah, and then you've got the American kids like Malukas and Kirkwood. So and you've got the best of that. So I think I think the rookie battle at some point this year is going to really heat up and it'll be really entertaining because these guys they're very talented. It's a deep field and it's hard to make headway.
And when you realize that the 6-time series champion and 500 winner is struggling to get to 4th, 5th, I'm talking about Scott Dixon, still as good a driver as there is. But when you heard his interview after the Barber race, he talked about the little tiny things that they miss that lose you time. And if you lose 2 or 3 hundredths of a second in this series, and you drop back 2 or 3 spaces.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is interesting. It's so tight right now that those little things really do matter. And, it's a lot of it's in car preparation, right? It's what you do before you get to the event. When the crews get, it's just every little, like Don said, the thousandths of a second matter. And, if the guy doesn't, the upright's just a little bit off, right? Everything matters. And it's, and it's a lot of it's at before race preparation.
Which makes it exciting because, and these 2 new young kids, Palou and O'Ward are coming in, good young kids. Malukas, I think, is going to be a good one. Giving him another, by the end of this year, he should start showing his talent. And a local guy is from Chicago, which is kind of interesting to get some people following him from there. So what do you hear, anything that you hear now starting looking ahead to next year, any changes you might heard a little rumor about, a possibility of? I know I've heard of one potential.
Yeah, I think there's going to be quite a bit of driver movement, and I think it's going to happen earlier than people think.
Really?
Yeah, I think so. I do. I think there's going to be a change at Andretti, and then you've got Arrow McLaren SP adding another car. I don't think you'll see anything change at Ganassi or Penske. I think Ericsson just depends on his sponsors and what they want to do, but I suspect he'd come. There's not really anywhere else he could go. So and he's good, and the team likes him. So I don't think he'll stick around there. But I think the other teams are going to be some movement.
I have heard some rumors of some people that potentially could make some changes, and you got again a guy like Ryan Hunter-Reay who's perfectly capable of competing. You just need a place in the engine of the car, and that's all he needs. Yep. Which is everything. If you don't have that, your helmet and driver's suit don't do you much good.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, I think the first thing we'll need to sort out is what Colton Herta is doing. And I think that'll depend on how his Formula One tests turn out. Yeah. If he's good, I think Daniel Ricciardo has a contract through 23, so I think you'll see Herta back next year no matter what.
Really?
But after that, it's game on to see what happens. And I think Pato will be back for sure. Felix is a question mark for sure at that team. The poor guy's had no luck and just, he's been qualifying really well, but he just, they had an issue getting the car full of fuel this week. And there's been a few things where things just haven't gone his way. I think he's due for a good result. He likes the track at IMS Road Course, so I expect them to be pretty good there.
And another one you hear talk about, although you don't know, is Alexander Rossi.
Yes.
Because he's been struggling, and it seems to me from watching, I don't go to as many races as I used to, but watching, it seems to me that Andretti has one car usually in a race that's good. The other 3 or 4 are marginal, and it's not always the same one that's good. Herta generally is, but he's been struggling the last couple of events too.
Yeah, he needs to. His head has been a little off. I think he's pushing pretty hard. And Rossi's pushing hard, but he's again. Andretti has had problems in the pits, which is not. they've never been Penske or Ganassi on the pit stops ever, right? Like, I mean, they've never been that team. But they've never been one to make mistakes either. And it seems like every week, like it's, I was watching the pit stops and timing some of them at Barber, and, Rossi would have an 8.8 second stop. Well, you look at a Ganassi stop for Palou, and it's 6.9 or 7. Well, that's a lot of time.
Oh, you betcha it is.
Right? And it's not huge mistakes, but it's enough that it's making a difference. And I know the Andretti crew is training hard, and it's just, I have no idea what it is. Because I know Rob Edwards is, the teams he's worked with before, the Walkers and the Schmidts, they were always fantastic on pit road, right? So I don't think, it's not that they're not making an effort. It's just, yeah, they're having problems right now, and it's just, and I'm sure the crews feel a ton of pressure too, right? They have to, and that could impact how they work too. So,
well, I find it interesting in McLaren because a couple of years ago they said, "Well, we're not ready," and so forth, and all of a sudden next year they show up, and now they're doing well in both Formula One and here, and now they're to a point where they're adding another car, which I find kind of interesting. That from going from no, we're not ready to now, and I think in 2 years they're going to add another car, which is good. If they can buy a car and find a crew, unless they bring them over from Europe.
Yeah, no, I think their growth has been fun to watch, and we all know Zach Brown's awfully bright, especially on the marketing side of things and the business side of things. So I think he's found some synergies between what he can do here and what he can do in F1. You can bring a sponsor on here for a fraction of the cost of what it sponsors F1, and if they like it, you can move them over, right? Or you can share them, or there is some synergies there, and there's some synergies between the crews too, right? The engineers and I think they quietly work on both sides of the fence. You've got bright guys on both sides, so you might as well help them work together.
And I think it's very interesting with Juncos Racing bringing in Brad Hollinger, who came from Williams in Formula One, sold all his assets. I think he had 10% or something, which was a lot of money.
Yeah.
A lot of money.
Yeah.
Coming over now, and you can see the difference. Although they told me when I did an interview with Ricardo, they have trouble with the crew as well.
They do, like everybody else. They do. I was so impressed with Mr. Hollinger, Brad, at Barber, because you think he's around for the IndyCar race, but when the first Indy Pro 2000 race was won by Reese Gold, who's a Juncos Hollinger driver, and Brad was down celebrating on pit road and jumping up and down. I thought that was so cool, right? Like, I think he just likes racing. He just wants to be around racing. So,
and apparently, whatever he does it well enough to be able to participate in, be an on-hands guy. And now Ricardo says he really enjoys having partnered with him. It's made him available. And in fact, they want to run a lights car next year if possible.
Yeah, I think Ricardo told me their plan is to have 2 lights cars next year again. So, no, that's good. And Brad's in the healthcare business, rehab hospitals. He owns quite a few of them. So he's okay. He's fine. So,
okay, well that's good.
It's good for Ricardo to have someone like that.
Yeah, and who's interested in
Exactly.
willing to do what it takes to step him forward. And from what I understand, the guys that work for Ricardo like working there.
Oh,
they
yeah,
enjoy
for
working
sure.
there.
Yeah, no, because he's a racer, right? Like he'll do what he needs to do to win, and he's not afraid to get his hands dirty either.
No,
right? So.
He engineered when they did some testing. He was the guy that engineered the car. So, I think the Formula One, I think they have several things going for them, and one is they brought Levi Jones in, which I thought was a brilliant move.
Yes.
I'm surprised he left USAC, where he's the vice president and had his hands in everything. Now he's got a job, and he's working and getting more cars, and I think he's going to do it by next year. You might be surprised how many they field.
No, he's working really hard at it, and he's fit in really well, and he's asked the right questions, and he's definitely working really hard to increase the exposure of the series as well. It's quietly behind the scenes, right? It's getting them in the IndyCar paddock. It's finding ways to help drivers, show their sponsors a good time. He's been there, done that, right?
Right.
Like racing's racing on that side of things, dealing with team owners, and he's done all that. And one thing I was always impressed with him at USAC is the promotion side. They grew under him. and I think they'll struggle now, without him, because he seems to be able to get people to work together, which is everything about racing.
And I think he learned how to market and get his attention since he drove for a guy by the name of Tony Stewart, who seems to be pretty good at doing that.
Yeah, he seems to be pretty good at putting those business deals together too. Yes, he does.
Now, I heard from one of the drivers who used to drive for Andretti, said it's amazing the magic that name has and what it can do. Do you think the Andretti name is enough that he will be able to get into Formula One?
I don't know. I really don't know. I don't think the Europeans give a crap about the Andretti name as much as we do here. They'd be silly not to, because he's been successful and he seems to be able to work with partners really well. And I don't know. It's hard to tell. I think he's concerned that it won't happen. And he's got the money to do it. He's got enough investment that they can do it. It's just a matter of whether he gets the chance to do it or not.
What do you think about now in Formula One? You have to build your car. When I came in to here in the early '60s, you had to build a car. That's where they came from. I'd kind of like to see it go back to that. Unfortunately, it'd probably be so astronomically expensive.
That's a problem.
That it wouldn't work. But I think it would be kind of neat if they did. And they used to buy an offie block and you'd build the engines yourself. Now you don't do that, and the lease is $1 million because it costs $1 million to build your own engines. I don't know. I assume it must.
I'm assuming it. I don't think the manufacturers are making money on that. I think it's that's what it costs, and that's what they charge, and they use the series for marketing. It's not a profit. They don't use Chevy and Honda are not here to make profits off their engines they sell. Look at it that way. They're here to market their products and make connections that way.
And they do, because I've asked the question, things you do in the race engine that goes, 13,000 RPMs for 500 miles, can you take some of what you do there and put it in a street car? Oh, yeah. Oh,
for sure. Yeah, no, that they definitely do. And it's interesting. The two sort of use it a little differently, Honda and Chevy. Honda's starting to do a little more of what Chevy does, but like the Chevy engineers, if you're on pit road and you'll see someone in a Chevy fire suit working with the teams, that engineer is rotated through, the manufacturing side, the design side, the racing side. So they kind of get to hit on everything because there's no higher pressure than the racing side. So they learn so much here that then they can take back to the other side of things. And no, like Chevy, if you directly ask them the direct injection part of the current engine formula, it's in their regular street cars. Everything they do now, look at even their Silverados and stuff are smaller displacement, V6, turbo, direct injection. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? So, yeah, and Honda's starting to do a lot more turbocharging and stuff like that too. So,
but Honda used to rotate their people. They bring them over from Japan, they work here, and then they take what they learned there and take it back over, work on designing engines for the cars, street cars. So it works. You see anything coming up with a third engine? There's been a lot of talk, and everybody said, well, if Roger can't pull it off, it can't happen. Well, Roger can't perform magic.
No, he can't. No, he can't just force people to do things. I think it's closer than it's been in a while. I'm not going to say it's a done deal yet, though, for sure. I don't think. It is interesting with Mr. Penske owning things. It doesn't leak quite the way it used to. So it is harder to get answers on some of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I don't think right now there's, I wouldn't say an announcement is imminent. I know they're working with a couple different partners, and they always have them at races. If you pay attention, you'll see people in other, shirts at races once in a while. But I don't think anything's set. And quite honestly, if they're going to be part of the new engine formula, it needs to be done by September, I would think, at the latest, and that's late. They should be announcing soon if they're going to do it. So, and
it will probably still take them a year, even though they get a head start from Honda and Chevy. They still got to develop it.
Yep.
Do a lot of testing to put their touches and squeezes in it. Well, I think it's kind of interesting. I think the Road to Indy program, even with IndyCar or Indy Lights leaving the Anderson Promotions, he's added another series of juniors. You got kids in there, 13, 14 years old.
I know, it's amazing. Yeah, I was down there. They were at Barber, and I got to meet quite a few of them, and it's impressive. And you know what? They did 2 20-lap races at Barber with no cautions, which is fantastic for the development of the drivers, right? Getting all that seat time without running around under yellow is huge. So, yeah, there's a kid there that's won all 4 races, leading championship, obviously. Matt Clark, who fans will want to pay attention to. He's a protege of Hinchcliffe, and he's an awfully good driver too. So he's one to watch for sure.
I think it's also interesting, as some of the drivers, I've always been a fan of Jay Howard. I thought he won champion. He won the Lights series with, I think he won 1 or 2 races, but because it was consistent, and he won everything as he was coming up. I thought he made the wrong decision in the car he got into when he got into IndyCar, which hurt his career there. But look at his team. He's got winners, and I want to get a hold of him shortly and find out where are his kids that have been with him. How far up have they moved? He's done a really good job with. No,
he really has. Christian Rasmussen's in Indy Lights right now, who won USF 2000 and Indy Pro with them. So, I don't think he's had anyone go into IndyCar yet, but he will.
I'm sure he will.
Developing a lot of kids, so.
He's doing a hell of a job, and his own kid now is.
Yeah, I saw it.
A driver's
karting.
Seat on.
Yeah, it's karting. So that's crazy.
That's got to be neat. But fortunately, his wife Courtney is all for it. So
yes,
they're working
She's
well.
a big race fan too.
Oh yeah, so that's great. Well, I think everything to me is heading in the right direction. I think with Levi and the Lights and Roger pushing the series, I would like to see him do what he said when he took over the series. He would like the IndyCar teams to either associate or run a car, and I haven't seen anything like that happen, particularly for him, since he's the one who said this is what we should do.
Yes. I don't know if they'll ever run an Indy Lights team. I don't know if that's something Mr. Tim Cindric wants to do or not, but we'll see. There's got to be some more incentives for teams to do it. Like you do get an extra test day, which is important when testing's limited. I think if you gave an extra 2 test days, you'd maybe have some more teams jump on. I am a little surprised that teams don't, because you look at the Andretti model and what they've been able to do and bring drivers up, and more importantly, bring sponsors through.
Yeah.
It's a good place to start a sponsor where they don't need to spend as much money, yet they get to do the same hospitality. So, no, it's definitely, I definitely like to see. I know I've talked to Graham Rahal, and Graham is interested. He wants to do Road to Indy. I don't think it'll be too many more years where you see him and Patrick Lanigan, Mike's son, running that team.
I think you're right.
But yeah, no, he told me flat out he's interested in the Road to Indy. So, which is great, right? Like, fantastic.
Well, most teams, if you ask the owners or the engineers or the crew chiefs who one of the better drivers in the series, and Graham is one of them. He's had all kinds of problems, but not necessarily of his own doing.
No.
I mean, wheels fall off. He didn't do that.
No, and you know what? He's got a bit of a disadvantage with his size, to be honest with you, especially in qualifying, right? Where it's so important, qualifying's so important. He races so well, yet, and it's not like it's a huge, he'll qualify 7th, 8th, 9th, but, if that weight, all of a sudden he could qualify 4th, well, that makes a huge difference.
Oh, absolutely.
Right? So, he races as well or better than anyone in the series.
He's got to get some more wins. He's got 1 or 2 now, but he should certainly. And he was in line last year to win the 500. I think he had the car to win it.
Yeah, I think he did too.
But like racing has, you go, oops.
Yeah.
Things happen. Well, listen, I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. I know we got the Indianapolis 500, 106th running of it upcoming, and you'll be out there, and I'm sure I'll stumble across you many times during the week.
I will. I'm looking forward to it.
But thanks for all the updates, and of course, I know how to get a hold of you, so maybe in the middle of the season or if things start to change, we'll call you back.
Sounds good to me. Thanks for having me on, Don.
All right, my pleasure. My guest, the guy who does most of the writing now for Trackside Online, and if you haven't subscribed, I highly recommend it. I get a lot of emails in the off-season say, where are these guys? What are they doing? Are they on vacation? No, they're not. And how do you find out? Trackside Online will tell you, because they get all the PR from all the teams, plus they tell you what they find out. It's worth it. Go to Trackside Online's DanteSpeedway.com and subscribe. It's a great service, and it's not that expensive. Till the next time, my guest, Steve Wittich, appreciate him coming. He's got some more lined up upcoming, so until the next time, Dante saying thanks for watching. We'll see you again.